Welcome to the People's Basics, the home of the universal basics. It's time for another episode of the Basic Brief where we break down the top stories of the week and then answer your questions at the very end of our episodes. Without any further ado, Matthew, what is our first story of the week?
The first story of the week is going up to Minnesota, where a group of anti-Line 3 protesters crashed a campaign event that Amy Klobuchar was speaking at. And we have that clip for you right here. And as you can see, Klobuchar was not really willing to engage with these protesters. She kind of tried to shut down immediately, and when that didn't work, she just exited the stage and ended her speech. And I think this is a really important issue to cover in the wake of the infrastructure bill being passed, because a big sticking point with the Line 3 and a big point the protesters are making is renovating parts of Line 3 and expanding it will hurt more of the local water supply up there in Minnesota. It's going through new areas. It passes through the Mississippi River twice. And that's something that should be talked about more. Because obviously water is pretty important to people, and we don't want to put more of our water supply in danger of oil spills. And obviously, on top of that, the long-term impacts of climate change and what building new oil pipelines does, and it helps prevent us from moving more towards green renewable energies. And I think this comes in the wake of a more global climate protest going on around the world, most specifically in Glasgow, where the COP Summit is being held. Hundreds of world leaders around the world are gathering, and protesters are making it known that they are not very happy with leaders' actions regarding climate right now. They're saying this summit is just a bunch of PR, a big PR stunt. They think it's a lot of greenwashing, and they're demanding that their leaders do more. We don't want you just talk the talk. We want them to start walking the walk a little more. But with that being said, John, what story are you covering this week?
Yeah, Matthew, I want to keep on that subject of water, and I actually want to focus on some news from my home state of New York. So this week, we had a story come out from the governor's office where they made this approval of essentially a two forms of water systems that are going to basically allow Nassau County to take municipal ownership over their water supply. They had this piece of legislature basically that is going to take over control called the North Shore Water Authority legislation, and in turn take what was the second highest cost of water in the state and hopefully get their costs under control, as well as improve the water control. Advocates have been hailing this as a big blow to corporate control of water in New York. And I think this is a big deal because this touches something close to home. In Rockland County, we have been trying to follow suit on this constitutional amendment and precedent that's been set in Nassau. We most recently had a town meeting regarding the acquisition of our water supply, going from the control of Suez to Veolia, with people having the opportunity to make public comments on the notion of whether or not we should try and municipalize our own water supply, as we are the most expensive county in New York State, with an average family of four having to pay roughly $111 per month, roughly for 12,000 gallons of water on average. This is important because on average, municipal systems are just much more cost effective. We have had multiple groups, from the Food and Water Watch to the National Research Council to the National Association of water companies, basically assert that we have had basically around a 50% surcharge on the cost of water when it's being privately managed versus municipally managed. And so with this transaction taking place and the most recent development of the infrastructure bill getting approved, it was important that we focus on this issue because if you have your water system be privately owned, you are not eligible for any federal grants. And so I decided to take the opportunity to go talk at our most recent county meeting to make my voice heard that we needed to try and stop or at least delay this acquisition so that we can do a feasibility study so that we can consider municipalizing our water system like 96% of other New Yorkers have. Let me give you a clip of that, of me speaking at that county meeting.
Next, we have Jonathan Munitz.
Hello, everyone. I'm Jonathan Munitz. I live in Montebello within Rockland County. I lead an organization called the People's Basics, and we focus on universal basic rights. I wanted to join this meeting today to recommend the idea of studying whether the water supply should be municipalized instead of approving this merger. We most recently had a ruling by Governor Hochul in allowing this to occur in Nassau County, who has the second highest water rate in the state. We currently have the highest water rate in the state, with a price that's been cited of around $111 for a family of four, assuming 12,000 gallons that they've had. I want to add a couple details that have been stated today. One being that the current Veolia group is a concern that I have. We've seen in other areas around the country that under their management, from reporting from The Intercept, that there have been legal challenges in places like Flint, as well as Pittsburgh, in the water quality that they produce, both times leading to claims filed against Veolia. I'm also concerned about the privatization of our water supply. This is leading to those water rates driving up, and the corporate profit rate of Veolia is higher than Suez. And so I worry that this will further exacerbate the price concerns that we have in our area. And with that being said, I want to thank you all for your time and hope that we'll take the time to actually feasibly study whether we can replace the revenue from taxation of private ownership of our water supply to moving to a municipalized model. Thank you.
So as you can see, it is vital that we finally take this moment where we, the people, take these natural resources, our land, our air, our water, the climate, into our own hands and start making some action. So that was my story for this week, Matthew. But that being said, those have been our stories of the week. You could find much more detail in the full article on our website at thepeoplesbasics.com. But with that being said, it's time for our mailbag. So we want to remind everyone, if you want to be able to send your question for a future mailbag, as we got a question today from Brian from New York, please check the description section down below so that you can click on our link tree and get to the form to be able to send a question to our mailbag. We want to hear from you because it allows us to talk about so many more issues that you really care about. So let's get to Brian's question from this week. So as I said, Brian from New York asked this question, and he wanted to know why America has seemingly been shifting more to the right in 2021. And because he sees us as, at least myself as a former Yang supporter, Brian had described in his question that he thinks that the Yang Gang in particular has been moving right as well, and wanted to hear what we thought on that. Matthew, do you want to give your first thoughts to Brian on why America is potentially moving to the right?
Yeah, I would like to say I don't think they are shifting hard to the right. I think most of America lives within a certain political bubble. And just the up and down nature of politics either leans more right or more left, depending on what's going on in the country right now. I really just think you're seeing this as the Biden administration kind of falling below expectations so far, and kind of the problems that the media is stirring up at the moment that people are just starting to get legitimately worried about. Like you're saying with inflation, most specifically, that's become a big talking point in the media. They're really pounding it home that they're blaming it on the stimulus package and the checks that people got cut, which we like to think is not true at all. But they're really pushing that home, saying the Biden administration is the Biden administration did cause these hikes in prices. And I think that's why you're seeing people kind of lean more towards the right now, why you're seeing Republican popularity kind of spike.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you, Matthew, that is a big reason why we've been seeing this shift. I think we particularly are seeing the media have this influence of what is the focus. When it came to kind of the obstruction with the Build Back Better and getting the two-track legislation of infrastructure as well as that, it was all this kind of circus of Democratic Party dysfunction. And rarely did you ever get a mention of, oh, all Republicans are basically opposing this. Now you could say, okay, yes, 13 Republicans in the House eventually voted for the infrastructure bill, 19 in the Senate, but that's not a majority of them. And we don't talk about that. It's almost like taking so much for granted that this is just their position. And we focus on this chaos and division where it kind of says two members getting all this focus of being objectors makes it, oh, these are all radicals that are demanding it because you can't get even 50 Democrats on board. And I think Joe Biden not rising to the moment and really showing himself as a commanding figure within the party that can unite people is really making him falter. And I think that coupled with just routine kind of conversational gaps in the way he communicates that creates some gaps, I think is creating generally a distrust of the Democratic Party that we're not following through on the issues we say we care about. And generally, I would also say it might not even be much of a general shift as much as it is a reactionary kind of election cycle. Almost always, when you have a new president, the opposing party starts to become very competitive. And I think we're starting to see in an era of increased polarization, presidents are not having this honeymoon phase for as long. And so I think a lot of people who are demanding change and are starting to see we're getting back to the status quo are a little frustrated. And so I don't know if it's as much of a rightward shift as much as just a lot of people who, originally progressives were all like, oh, Joe Biden seems a little bit more progressive than we thought. He championed really quickly out the gate all these executive orders and the new stimulus plan. And then it was just a long while of like, oh wait, no, this is Joe Biden. This is who we thought we were getting. We were pleasantly surprised before, but no, this is who we thought we were getting. And we're a little disappointed by that. So I don't know if it's as much of a right shift as much as we're just disappointed in Joe Biden, and the people who align closest with him, like Terry McAuliffe, are going to get impacted by that too. So, Brian, I hope we answered your question. Just to give you a quick part on the Yang Gang part, because I don't want to go too much into it because I have no data whatsoever to say one way or another. I'd guess it's just because Yang left the Democratic Party, and so those who are staying with him are more likely non-Democrats at this point. But I'd need more data to tell you if that's a legitimate thing. But I know a lot of people are concerned about the country moving right because we had the most recent Virginia governor's race, New Jersey, etc. So I hope we answered your question, and we hope others will send us questions just like you did by going to our link tree as well. So, Matthew, got any final words you want to share with the Universal people or Brian?
Yeah, I would just say on the Yang gang that since Yang did leave the Democrats, I think any coalition that does stay with him will more naturally see them as the enemy. I don't think there's a noticeably hard right shift. It's just kind of the loudest members that are still left that are kind of making it seem that way.
Yeah, I think that's probably right. Um, I think there is definitely something to be said about like now that you no longer got to appeal to Democrats because Yang's no longer a Democrat and
The true colors are being
Democrats
shown now.
aren't even the target. They start acting like conservatives in order to fit in and maybe be a bit more persuasive. But again, this is all anecdotal, and I have no idea if this is any bit substantiated. So I hope you enjoyed our opinions trying to guess at it if it's even real. But everyone, this has been another episode of The Basic Brief. We hope you all enjoyed seeing us break down the top stories of the week and answer your questions. We'll be back again on Friday with our newest Basic Brief, as well as we put out content on Wednesdays for interviews with people in the community. So if you don't want to send a question, or you want to bring your cause and share it, we do interviews every Sunday for the People's Platform. And as well, we got new articles every Thursday. And all of this can be found at our website, thepeoplesbasics.com. So we hope to see you all next week, friends. And until then, we hope you have a great week.